"Marry me or forget me forever," said the Count, and she chose the impossible. "Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from." The chandeliers of the Ravello Palace glimmered like captured stars. Laughter and violins filled the grand ballroom, yet Isabella Moretti felt completely invisible. Her dress was simple, white muslin mended twice, and her gloved hands trembled as she held a glass of punch she didn't want. She was the daughter of a ruined wine merchant, invited only because her godmother insisted she attend. "Smile, my dear," whispered Signora Bianchi beside her. "You must look as if you belong." "I don't," Isabella murmured. "Everyone can see that." At that moment, a hush swept through the room. Conversations paused, fans fluttered, and the crowd parted. Alessandro di Ravello, heir to one of the oldest families in Tuscany, had entered the ballroom. His black coat was perfectly cut, his posture proud but not arrogant. He was the kind of man people watched rather than approached. He greeted a few guests, nodded to a duchess, but his eyes, dark and steady, moved over the crowd and stopped. On her. Isabella didn't notice at first. She was trying to find an excuse to leave, to escape before someone remembered her father's bankruptcy. But when she looked up, their gazes locked and her breath caught. A noblewoman nearby whispered to another, "Who is that girl? Not of our circle, surely." Alessandro crossed the room without hesitation. The crowd seemed to open for him, though no one moved willingly. He stopped before Isabella, bowed slightly and said in a low voice, "May I have this dance?" The punch glass nearly slipped from her hand. "My lord, I don't think—" "Please," he interrupted, his eyes soft but intent. "Just one dance." She nodded before her mind could stop her. The music shifted to a waltz and he led her to the center of the floor. Murmurs rose around them like a storm. As they danced, Isabella kept her gaze lowered. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "They're all watching." "I've never cared for eyes that judge," Alessandro replied. "Tell me your name." "Isabella Moretti." His grip tightened ever so slightly. "The daughter of the wine merchant from Siena?" "Yes," she said quietly. "Or what's left of him." He studied her face. "You don't belong here, they think, but I've never seen anyone belong more." She tried to smile, but emotion pressed against her chest. "You don't even know me." "Then let me begin to." The music carried them through 3 turns, 4, 5. The other dancers seemed distant shadows. Isabella felt weightless, caught between disbelief and wonder. When the final notes faded, the ballroom erupted in whispers. Alessandro bowed to her, still holding her gaze. "Thank you, Signorina Moretti." She curtsied awkwardly. "Thank you, my lord." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Would you walk with me?" The air here is heavy. Every instinct told her to refuse, to avoid more scandal. But something in his tone, earnest, restrained, made her follow. They slipped through the open doors into the palace gardens. The night was quiet except for the distant hum of violins. Lanterns glowed among rose bushes. Isabella kept her hands clasped tightly before her. "You dance as if you've done it all your life," he said. "My father once traded wine for music lessons," she replied softly. "Before we lost everything." Alessandro stopped. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For the cruelty of people who measure worth by coin and title." She looked at him, unsure whether to believe the sincerity in his eyes. "And yet, you live among them. For now," he said. A silence stretched between them. The wind carried the faint scent of roses. "Why did you ask me to dance?" she asked finally. "Because you looked as though you wished to disappear," he said simply. "And I couldn't let that happen." She laughed faintly, surprised. "You speak as if I were a ghost." "Perhaps you are," he murmured. "A ghost who just reminded me I'm alive." Her heart pounded. She turned away, afraid of what her expression might reveal. "You shouldn't say such things." "I always say what I mean." Inside, someone called his name. "Alessandro, the Duchess of Ferrara awaits your company." He sighed, but his gaze never left Isabella. "Do you believe in chance, Signorina Moretti?" "I believe in mistakes," she said. "Then let me prove you wrong." He took her hand and kissed it, a gesture so gentle, so deliberate, that Isabella felt the ground sway beneath her feet. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'll come for you. There's something I must ask." She pulled her hand back, her breath unsteady. "You shouldn't." "But I will." He bowed once more, his eyes holding hers until the very last second. Then he turned and walked back toward the ballroom. Isabella stood alone in the garden, the echo of the waltz still in her ears. When she returned to her seat beside her godmother, Signora Bianchi was pale with shock. "Isabella, what did you do?" "Nothing," she whispered. "I danced." "You danced with the heir of Ravello," her godmother hissed. "Do you realize what that means? Everyone saw you." Isabella's face flushed. Around the room, heads turned, whispers multiplied. Some smiled with pity, others with disdain. She lowered her eyes, wishing the marble floor would open beneath her. Across the hall, Alessandro was speaking with his father, the Duke. Their exchange was brief but sharp. The Duke's expression hardened as Alessandro's voice rose. Then Alessandro turned abruptly, ignoring the startled looks, and left the ballroom altogether. Signora Bianchi touched Isabella's arm. "We must leave." "Yes," Isabella murmured. In the carriage, the older woman sighed heavily. "You must forget him at once. These people, this world is not for us." "I know," Isabella said. But the truth was, she could still feel the warmth of his hand around hers. That night, long after returning home, Isabella sat by the small window of her father's crumbling house. The city lights shimmered below, distant as dreams. She pressed her fingers to her lips, remembering the way Alessandro had looked at her, as if she were someone he'd been searching for. "Foolish," she whispered to herself. "Completely foolish." The next morning, she awoke to the sound of wheels outside. A fine carriage, black and silver, stood before the gate. A uniformed driver approached the door and handed her a sealed letter. "From the house of Ravello, Signorina Moretti," he said. Her heart raced as she broke the seal. The handwriting was strong, deliberate. "Miss Moretti, allow me the honor of calling upon you this morning. A.D. Ravello." Her fingers trembled. "He can't mean it," she murmured. But curiosity and something deeper, hope, perhaps, made her dress quickly. Her godmother scolded her the whole way to the palace. "He is playing with you, Isabella. These men do not marry women like us. I only wish to hear what he has to say." When they arrived, the palace gates opened without question. Servants bowed as they passed through. The marble halls glowed with morning light, the air filled with the scent of polished wood and lilies. A steward approached them. "The young lord is occupied at the moment. Please wait in the drawing room." Isabella sat in silence, her heart pounding. But after several minutes, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The steward returned, not with Alessandro, but with a tall, austere man whose eyes were cold and sharp. "The Duke of Ravello," the steward announced. Isabella stood quickly and curtsied. "Your Grace." The Duke's gaze swept over her, assessing, disapproving. "So you are the merchant's daughter who danced with my son?" "Yes, sir," she said, her voice trembling. He smiled faintly, though there was no kindness in it. "It was a lovely performance. You have a certain spirit." "Thank you. But spirit is not the same as place," he said, "and you have forgotten yours." Isabella froze. "My lord, I never meant—" "You presume too much," he interrupted. "My son is impressionable, idealistic. You will not see him again." Her throat tightened. "He asked me to come." "He will not ask again," the Duke said firmly. "You will forget this foolishness, and I will consider your family's debts forgiven." "That should suffice." She felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. "You think I came here for money. I think you came here for something far more dangerous," he said coldly. "Ambition." Tears stung her eyes, but she held her ground. "You are mistaken, sir." "Am I?" He gestured toward the door. "The carriage will take you home." Her legs felt weak as she turned to leave. At the door she paused, her voice barely steady. "Tell your son. He need not worry. I will not trouble him again." The Duke did not answer. Outside, the sky was cloudless, cruelly bright. Her godmother tried to comfort her, but Isabella said nothing during the ride back. She stared at the road, her heart numb. When they reached her modest house, her father was waiting by the gate, leaning on his cane. "Where have you been?" he asked. "To the palace," she whispered. His expression darkened. "They humiliated you, didn't they?" She nodded once. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Remember, child, our name may be poor, but it is honest. Hold your head high, That night she sat at the window again, tears drying silently on her cheeks. She told herself she would forget, that he belonged to another world, and that world had just shut its gates forever. But near midnight, a soft knock came at the door. She opened it to find a cloaked figure standing in the shadows. "Isabella," said a familiar voice. She gasped. "Alessandro?" He stepped forward, eyes blazing with anger and pain. "My father told you to leave, didn't he?" She hesitated. He thought it best. "He thinks he rules my life," Alessandro said, "but I am not his property. You shouldn't be here. I don't care, I had to see you." She tried to speak, but he took her hand. "Listen to me. Whatever he said, forget it. I meant every word last night. You are not beneath me, Isabella. You never were." Her eyes filled with tears. "They'll destroy you for this." "Then let them try," he said fiercely. Voices echoed in the distance, guards shouting, the Duke's men. Alessandro turned toward the sound, then back to her. "If they take me away, don't believe what they say. Promise me." He squeezed her hand. "Promise, I promise," she whispered. The guards reached the gate. The Duke himself appeared behind them, his expression thunderous. "Enough!" he roared. "Alessandro inside now." They seized the young count by the arm, dragging him away. He struggled once, twice before surrendering to avoid hurting her. As they pulled him toward the carriage, he twisted around and shouted through the night, voice raw and desperate. "I'll find you, Isabella, even if I have to defy the world." Morning came grey and silent. Isabella sat by the hearth, still wearing yesterday's dress. Her father's cough echoed from the next room. She hadn't slept. Her mind was filled with the sound of Alessandro's voice being dragged away by guards. A knock came at the door. When she opened it, a man in a dark coat stood there, carrying a folded letter with the seal of Ravello. He looked uncomfortable. "For Miss Moretti," he said, placing it in her hands. She tore it open, but it wasn't from Alessandro. The handwriting was different, colder, elegant. "Miss Moretti," it read. "His lordship will not be receiving visitors. The family thanks you for your understanding. Further contact would be considered improper." She stared at the words until they blurred. The man bowed slightly and left. Her father came out coughing and saw her face. "What happened?" "They sent someone else," she whispered. "Not him." Her father sighed heavily. "You mustn't expect anything more, Isabella. People like them live by rules that crush hearts. I know." He rested a hand on her shoulder. "Let it die before it ruins you." But she couldn't. All day she waited, glancing at the road, hoping the carriage would return. It never did. Across the hills, in the Ravello estate, Alessandro stormed into his father's study. The Duke stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. "You humiliated her," Alessandro said. "You sent that letter." "I did what any father would," the Duke replied calmly. "I protected my son from disgrace." "She did nothing wrong. She exists in the wrong place," his father snapped. "Do you think love erases rank? Do you think our name survives if you throw it into the dirt?" "I don't care about the name." "You will, when you have nothing else." Alessandro's voice rose. "You talk of honor as if it were a coin to be polished. She is better than any woman who's ever stepped into this palace." The Duke's face darkened. "If you ever speak of her again, you'll leave this house with nothing but your arrogance." "Then I'll leave," Alessandro said. "Not until I decide," the Duke replied coldly. "You'll travel to Naples tomorrow. I'll have you oversee our business there. It's time you learned duty." Alessandro stepped closer, fists clenched. "You mean exile? Call it what you wish." The Duke rang a bell. Servants appeared instantly. "See that my son's luggage is prepared. He departs at dawn." Alessandro stared at him for a long moment. "You can send me across the world," he said quietly, "but you can't make me forget her." When he turned to leave, his father said, "If you write to her, I'll see every letter burned before it leaves this house." Alessandro stopped, anger flooding his face. Then he walked out without another word. That night, the wind rattled Isabella's shutters. She sat by her father's bed, reading aloud from a worn Bible to calm him. When he fell asleep, she slipped outside. The air was cold, the sky full of restless clouds. She walked toward the vineyard, the one her father once owned, now half abandoned. Memories of her childhood lingered among the vines. The smell of grapes, the sound of laughter. It was all gone now, like everything else. A figure appeared on the path. Isabella froze. Alessandro! He was breathless, his coat damp from the mist. "I had to see you," he said. She ran to him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They told me. I know what they told you. My father has sent me away, but I couldn't leave without seeing you once more." Her heart pounded. "You can't be here. If someone sees, I don't care. I'll face whatever comes." He reached for her hand. "Isabella, listen to me. I love you. I've never spoken those words to anyone, but I'm saying them now because they're the only truth I have left." She shook her head, tears already forming. "You don't know what you're saying. You'll lose everything. Let me lose it." "What is an inheritance compared to you?" "Stop," she whispered. "You're making it harder. I'm making it real." He stepped closer. "Tell me you feel nothing, and I'll go." She couldn't speak. The tears betrayed her silence. He smiled faintly. "Then I'll take that as my answer." "Alessandro, please!" A shout came from the hill. Torches moved in the distance. Guards again. He turned toward the sound, jaw tight. "They followed me." "Go," she said, panic in her voice. "You have to go. Not until you tell me you'll wait." "Wait for what? You'll be gone. You'll marry someone your father chooses." "I won't. You must. It's your world. Then I'll destroy that world." The torches grew closer. "Please," she begged. "If they find you here, it'll be worse." He hesitated, torn between fury and helplessness. Then he pressed something into her hand. A silver ring, plain but heavy. "Keep it, so you know I'll return." She closed her fingers around it, trembling. "Alessandro!" Before she could say more, the guards reached the edge of the vineyard. The Duke himself rode at their head, his cloak billowing. "Enough of this madness," the Duke shouted. "Bring him back." "Don't let them hurt him," Isabella cried. Two guards seized Alessandro by the arms. He didn't fight, only looked at her once more. "Remember what I said," he called. "I'll find you." "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't come back for me." The Duke turned his glare on her. "You've caused enough shame, girl. Stay away from my son, or I'll make certain your family never rises again." The guards dragged Alessandro toward the carriage. His father followed, his voice low with fury. Isabella stood frozen, the ring cutting into her palm. When the carriage rolled away, she ran back to the house, breathless and shaking. Her father met her at the door, eyes full of worry. "What have you done?" he asked. "I didn't call him," she said through tears. "He came." He took her by the shoulders. "You must not see him again, promise me." She nodded weakly. "I promise." That night, she hid the ring beneath her pillow. Each hour stretched endlessly, marked only by the sound of her father's labored breathing and the wind outside. By dawn, word had already spread. In the marketplace, whispers followed her. "That's her, the merchant's daughter, who ensnared the young count." When she passed, people turned away or smirked behind fans. At the bakery, the woman who once greeted her warmly handed her bread without meeting her eyes. She forced herself to walk home with her head high, though every step felt heavier than the last. Later that morning, her godmother arrived, face pale with alarm. "Isabella, listen to me. The Duke's men are saying you tempted him. They're calling you shameless. You must leave Siena for a while." "Leave? And go where?" "To my cousin in Florence. You can teach there, live quietly until the gossip fades." "My father's too ill to travel." "Then you'll endure it," her godmother said sadly. "But know this, these people won't forgive what they envy." Days passed. Isabella tried to disappear, avoiding the market, tending to her father. But the humiliation grew. A group of young women, daughters of local merchants, began mocking her openly when she walked by. "Where's your noble lover now?" one of them sneered. Isabella ignored them, but her cheeks burned. That evening she found her father staring at the unpaid bills piled on the table. "I'll sell the piano," she said quietly. "No," he answered. "It's the only beauty left in this house. I can't let you worry," he smiled faintly. "You were born to stand taller than this, Isabella. Don't let shame break you." But it already had. Every sound outside made her flinch, expecting another whisper, another cruel glance. Weeks later, word reached Siena. The Count of Ravello had left for Naples. Some said it was business, others said punishment. Isabella refused to believe either. She wanted to believe he had chosen to go, to build something of his own, to come back when he could. But as the months passed, silence grew heavier. One evening, rain fell hard against the roof. Her father was too weak to speak. She sat by his bed, holding his hand, when a knock echoed at the door. She opened it to find a rider soaked to the bone, holding a sealed envelope. "For Miss Isabella Moretti," he said. Her heart leapt. She broke the seal instantly. Inside, on fine paper, were only 6 words written in Alessandro's hand. "Marry me or forget me forever." The ink was blurred by rain. She stared at the message, her breath catching. "He's mad," she whispered. Her father stirred weakly. "What is it?" "Nothing, Papa, just nothing." But when he drifted back to sleep, she read the letter again and again. Each word burned deeper. By dawn, she hadn't decided whether to laugh or cry. Her father called for her, voice faint. "Isabella, promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, you'll keep your dignity. No nobleman, no title is worth your soul." Tears ran down her cheeks. "I promise." He smiled, closed his eyes, and fell silent. She sat beside him until the first light broke through the window. Then she took the letter, folded it carefully, and set it in the fire. The paper curled, blackened, vanished. Hours later, she wrote her own note on plain parchment, her hand shaking. "My lord, I am not worthy of you. Forget me." She gave it to the same rider who had delivered Alessandro's message. "Take this to the Count of Ravello," she said. He nodded and rode away. When he disappeared over the hill, Isabella sank to her knees, exhausted and numb. The rain began again, washing over the empty vineyard, carrying away the ashes of a dream she'd dared to believe. 3 weeks later, she heard the church bells ring. The townspeople gathered at the square. Someone whispered that the Count had sailed from Livorno, bound for distant lands. She turned away before anyone saw her cry. That night she stood at the window, holding the silver ring he had given her. "Forgive me," she murmured. "I chose what I must." In the distance, a single light glowed on the horizon, the direction of the sea. She imagined a ship cutting through the water, Alessandro staring into the same night sky. She didn't see the shadow that lingered near the old vineyard, watching the house silently before disappearing into the darkness. From that moment on, Isabella believed he was gone forever, unaware that what had just ended was only the beginning of their torment and their story. The ship rocked gently against the dark waves, its sails catching the faint light of dawn. Alessandro stood at the railing, the wind cold against his face. He unfolded the letter once more, the one that had arrived the night before his departure. Her handwriting was delicate, familiar. The words burned. "I am not worthy of you. Forget me." He read it again and again until the ink blurred. Then he folded it carefully and tucked it into his coat. "So this is what it means to be noble," he muttered. "To lose everything that matters." Behind him, the sea stretched endlessly. He closed his eyes and whispered her name into the wind. Isabella. In Siena, the house of the Morettis was silent. Isabella buried her father 2 days after Alessandro's departure. The funeral was small, just her godmother, a few neighbors, and the priest. She didn't cry. Not then. Only when everyone had gone did she kneel beside the grave, pressing her forehead against the fresh earth. "You can rest now, Papa," she said softly. "I kept my promise." But in her heart, something else broke. Days turned into weeks. She sold the remaining bottles of wine, the furniture, even her mother's jewelry, to pay the last debts. When the house was nearly empty, her godmother came again, holding a letter from a cousin in Florence. "They need a piano teacher," Signora Bianchi said. "You play beautifully, it's honest work, and no one there will know your name." Isabella hesitated. "And the vineyard?" "It's gone," the older woman said gently. "Let it go too." That night Isabella packed her few belongings. Before she left, she walked once more through the vineyard, its vines tangled and dry. The silver ring Alessandro had given her still hung from a ribbon around her neck. She touched it briefly, then turned away. By morning, she was gone. Florence was louder than she imagined, streets crowded with carriages, vendors, laughter, too alive for her quiet grief. Her godmother's cousin, Signora De Luca, welcomed her kindly. "You'll teach the daughters of good families," she said. "They'll respect you if you speak little and play well." Isabella nodded. "I can do that." So began her new life. Music lessons, quiet meals, and long walks along the Arno River. She spoke little, smiled less, but her students adored her patience and grace. To them she was mysterious, gentle, distant, untouchable. Yet every night when the city slept, she opened a small wooden box. Inside lay Alessandro's letter, the last trace of him. She could never bring herself to destroy it. Meanwhile, far away in Naples, Alessandro buried himself in work. His father's business demanded his attention: vineyards, contracts, endless meetings with men who measured everything in profit. He went through the motions without passion. "Signor di Ravello," said his steward one morning, "the Duke would be pleased to know you've doubled our export to France." "My father is dead," Alessandro replied curtly. "There's no one left to please." The man fell silent. Years began to blur. Alessandro traveled often, to Paris, Vienna, London, but every city felt the same. He tried to forget her, yet every piece of music, every scent of grapes in the air, brought her back. One night, in a tavern near the docks, an old sailor spoke of Siena. "The Moretti vineyard," he said, "lies abandoned now. But I heard the merchant's daughter became a teacher in Florence, a fine lady, quiet as a prayer." Alessandro's glass froze halfway to his lips. "A teacher, that's what they say." He left the tavern at once, his heart pounding. Back in Florence, Isabella's life had settled into calm repetition. Her students came and went, the seasons changed, and she learned to find peace in small things: the sound of piano keys, the laughter of her pupils, the sunset over the river. Still, sometimes, she'd wake from dreams of him, his voice, his eyes, his promise echoing through the night. Then, one afternoon, while teaching a young girl named Clara, Isabella heard a knock at the door. Signora De Luca opened it, her voice carrying down the hall. "A letter for you, Signorina Moretti." Isabella frowned. No one wrote to her. She wiped her hands and took the envelope. The seal was unfamiliar, a merchant's mark, not noble. She opened it quickly. The letter was from Siena, from an old neighbor. "My dear Isabella, forgive me for bringing sorrow, but you should know the vineyard you left behind has been sold. They say the buyer is a man from the south, a nobleman, tall, dark-haired, traveling under another name. He arrived alone." Her pulse quickened. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." The next day she took a carriage to Siena. The hills were golden again, just as before, and the air smelled faintly of grapes. When she reached the vineyard, she saw new workers, fresh tools, and standing near the old gate, a man watching the horizon. Even from a distance she knew him. "Alessandro," she breathed. He turned, startled. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he smiled faintly. "I hoped you'd come." Her steps faltered. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," he said softly. "Yet here we are." "You bought this land?" "I wanted to restore what your father built." "Why?" "Because it's where I found you." She shook her head. "You shouldn't have done this. I did it for both of us." Her voice trembled. "You have no right to return now. You asked me to choose, and I did." He stepped closer. "You chose fear. I chose you." "That hasn't changed." She looked away. 5 years, Alessandro. 5 years of silence. "You don't know me anymore. I know what I felt, and I know I've never felt it for anyone else." She turned toward the vines, her eyes glistening. "You speak as if time waited for you. It didn't. We're different people now. Then let me learn who you are again." Her breath caught. And what would people say? The noble count and the teacher. They'd laugh as they always did. "I no longer answer to them," he said. "My father is gone. His world with him." The words hung between them, fragile, impossible. Before she could reply, the sound of carriage wheels echoed down the road. A servant hurried toward them, bowing to Alessandro. "My lord, forgive me, but the mayor is here to welcome you." Alessandro straightened. "Tell him I'll come shortly." When the servant left, Isabella whispered, "He called you my lord. You said you came under another name." He smiled slightly. "The truth travels fast, even when we wish it wouldn't." She took a step back. "Then you'll be discovered again. The gossip will start all over." "Let it," he said. "I'm done hiding." Her throat tightened. "You'll ruin yourself. If ruin is the price for truth, I'll pay it gladly." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I can't do this." He reached for her, but she stepped away. "I have a life now. Students who depend on me. Peace, even if it's lonely. Don't take that from me." His voice softened. "I don't want to take anything. I only came to see if you were happy." She hesitated. "And what if I'm not?" "Then I'll stay until you are." A long silence followed. The wind rustled the vines like whispers from another time. Finally she said, "Go back to Florence. Leave me out of this." He studied her face, then nodded slowly. "If that's what you truly want, I will." She turned away, hiding her tears. "Goodbye, Alessandro." He looked at her one last time. "This isn't goodbye. Not yet." As he mounted his horse and rode toward town, Isabella stood among the vines, trembling. That evening she returned to Florence. She told Signora De Luca nothing. She resumed her lessons as if nothing had happened. But each night she thought of him walking through her father's vineyard, restoring it, waiting. Weeks later she received another letter, not from Siena, but from Naples. It was unsigned, written in the same bold hand as before. "I am not asking again for love or forgiveness, only for truth. If you have ever felt for me what I felt for you, come once more to the vineyard before harvest. After that, I'll be gone." She read it over and over, heart twisting. The harvest was only days away. That night she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like his voice. Every gust of wind whispered her name. In the morning she decided. She packed her things quietly, left a note for Signora De Luca, and took the road back to Siena. The sun was rising when she reached the hill. The vineyard shimmered gold in the light. Alessandro was there, waiting by the gate. "You came," he said softly. "I shouldn't have, but you did." She opened her mouth to speak, but a shout interrupted them. A messenger rode up, breathless, handing Alessandro a sealed letter. He broke the seal, his expression darkening as he read. "What is it?" she asked. He looked up slowly. "My father's lawyer. There's been a mistake in the estate. They're contesting the sale of this land. The vineyard may be taken from me." Her hand went to her chest. "But why?" "Because someone doesn't want this place to belong to us," he said. She frowned. "Who?" Before he could answer, the messenger added quietly, "The order comes from Florence, my lord. Someone there petitioned the council yesterday." Alessandro's eyes narrowed. "Florence?" "Yes, sir." "Signed anonymously." He folded the letter, his jaw tightening. "Then someone intends to separate us again." The afternoon light burned gold across the vineyard. Isabella watched Alessandro pace near the stone wall, the letter crumpled in his hand. His face was pale, his jaw tight. "Someone in Florence," he repeated, his voice low. "Someone who knows you." She frowned. "Knows me? Who would do such a thing?" "I don't know yet," he said. "But I'll find out." He walked toward her, eyes still burning with anger. "Did you tell anyone about the vineyard? Anyone at all?" "No," she said quickly. "I told no one. I left Florence without saying where I was going. Only Signora De Luca knew." "Then it must have been her." "She would never," Isabella said, shaking her head. "She's kind." "Kindness fades when money speaks," he said bitterly. "Please don't accuse her. You don't know the people there. And you don't know the people who fear us being together," he snapped. "There are those who still think the Ravello name must stay pure." She drew back, hurt. "So now we're a danger to you?" He exhaled sharply. "No, you're everything I want. But they won't stop until I've lost everything I've rebuilt." "Then let them take it," she said. "You don't need land or titles. You said it yourself." His eyes softened. "It's not the land I care about, Isabella. It's what it means. This vineyard was your father's dream. Ours now. If they take it, they win again." She looked away, her heart twisting. "You speak of battles. I only want peace." He reached out and touched her cheek gently. "Then let me fight for it." She stepped back, shaking her head. "You can't fight a world that's built on names." He gave a faint smile. "Then I'll build a new one." Before she could answer, a servant approached, out of breath. "My lord, a messenger from Florence awaits you at the house. He says it's urgent." Alessandro nodded. "Tell him I'll come." He turned to Isabella. "Promise me you'll stay here until I return." She hesitated. "I should go back to Florence. My work—" "Not yet," he interrupted. "Please, just a few days. I want you safe." She looked into his eyes and nodded slowly. "All right." When he left, the wind carried the faint sound of his horse galloping down the road. Isabella stood alone, staring at the vines swaying gently under the evening light. Inside the small house on the property, She tried to distract herself by cleaning, preparing food, anything. But her thoughts wouldn't quiet. What if someone truly meant to destroy him? What if her presence brought ruin again? Hours later, she sat by the window, watching the last glow fade from the sky. She remembered the letter he had sent years ago, "Marry me or forget me forever." The same choice seemed to hang over her now, silent but alive. The next morning she walked to the village for supplies. The shopkeeper, an old woman, recognized her instantly. "You're the merchant's daughter," the woman said, "the one who taught music in Florence." "Yes," Isabella said carefully. The woman nodded toward the hills. "Then you'll know the Count is stirring trouble again. The nobles don't like what he's done. Buying land beneath his station, bringing back your family's name. Some say it's shameful." Isabella's hands trembled as she handed over coins. "People will always talk." "They'll do more than talk," the woman said grimly. "They've sent letters to Florence, to certain patrons. I heard it at the post station." Isabella froze. "What letters?" "Warnings. About you. About him. That he's being manipulated by a woman who means to ruin his family name." Her stomach turned. "That's a lie. Truth doesn't matter to those with power," the woman said, lowering her voice. "Be careful, child. You're stepping on noble ground." Isabella thanked her and hurried back to the vineyard, heart pounding. When she arrived, Alessandro was already there, standing by the stable, speaking with a stranger. The man was tall, dressed like a city clerk, carrying documents in a leather case. The moment Alessandro saw her, his expression hardened. "We need to talk." The clerk bowed politely and stepped aside. "Isabella," Alessandro said, his tone tight. "I went to Florence." The petition came from someone close to the De Luca family. Her throat tightened. "Then it's true," he nodded. "A false claim that you and I forged documents to acquire this land. That's absurd," she said. "I had nothing to do with—" "I know," he interrupted, "but they intend to make it public. Once that happens, every noble house in Tuscany will see you as a criminal and me as a fool." She felt dizzy. "Why would they do this?" "To keep us apart," he said bitterly. "To erase you again." She covered her face with trembling hands. "I can't go through that again, Alessandro. The whispers, the shame, I can't." He took her hands gently, pulling them down. "Then don't face it alone. Stay with me. Marry me now, before they can stop it." She stared at him, stunned. "Marry you? Now?" "Yes. There's a priest in the village who owes my family a favor. We can be wed quietly, before they take everything from us." Her heart raced. "You can't mean that. You'd lose your standing." "I've already lost my peace. What's left to lose?" Tears filled her eyes. "You're asking me to destroy what's left of your name." "I'm asking you to give it meaning." For a moment, silence filled the air between them. Then she whispered, "I can't. Not like this. Not while the world thinks I've trapped you." He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "You're afraid." "Yes," she admitted. "Afraid of what they'll do to you." He faced her again, his voice low. "And I'm afraid of losing you a second time." Her tears fell freely now. "You don't understand. My father made me promise never to live on someone else's mercy. If I marry you while they despise me, it'll be mercy, not love." He took a step closer. "It's love, Isabella. It always has been." She shook her head. "Not if it ruins you. You think too much of ruin. I think of forever." She looked away, unable to breathe. "You don't see what I see. I see their eyes when they whisper. I see their cruelty. I can't bear to watch them tear you apart because of me." He caught her chin gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Then tell me what you want." She hesitated, her voice trembling. "I want to be free of their world. And I want you to be free, too." "Then we're the same," he said softly. "No," she whispered, "because your freedom costs you everything. Mine only costs me my heart." He let her go slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. "You're choosing pride over love. I'm choosing your future." A long silence fell. The wind swept through the vineyard again, carrying the faint scent of grapes. Finally she spoke. "I'll return to Florence tonight. They'll forget in time. You can still reclaim your name." "I don't want a name without you." She smiled sadly. "You will someday." He took a deep breath. "If you walk away now, Isabella, you'll never see me again." She closed her eyes. the words cutting deep. Then let that be my punishment. He stared at her, searching for something to hold on to. But she turned and walked toward the house, her steps slow, final. By dusk, a carriage was waiting on the road. Alessandro watched as she climbed in, refusing to look back. When the wheels began to turn, he whispered under his breath, "Then I'll wait no matter how long." The carriage disappeared over the hill. Inside, Isabella sat rigid, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The ring around her neck felt heavier than ever. When the driver asked if she was all right, she only said, "Keep going." By the time she reached Florence, night had fallen. The city lights flickered against the dark river, beautiful and cruel. She went straight to Signora De Luca's house, her heart pounding. The older woman opened the door, startled. "Isabella, I didn't expect—" "Why?" Isabella demanded. "Why did you send those letters?" De Luca's face paled. "Who told you that?" Alessandro saw the proof. "The petition came from your family." The woman sighed heavily. "You don't understand. They came to me, the Duke's associates. They offered money, enough to secure my husband's business. I thought if I didn't agree, they'd destroy us both. So you destroyed me instead?" Isabella's voice trembled. "I did what I thought was necessary," the woman said softly. "You'll recover. He won't. They would have ruined him entirely." Isabella stepped back, shaking. "You don't know what you've done. He wanted to marry me." De Luca's eyes widened. "Marry you? My child, that would have been your end. They would have turned you into a scandal for generations." "Then let them," Isabella shouted. "At least it would have been truth, not lies." De Luca reached for her, but Isabella pulled away. "I never wanted harm for you," the woman pleaded. "You're like a daughter to me." "Then pray for the daughter you've lost," Isabella said coldly. She turned and left, her footsteps echoing in the empty street. Outside, the wind whipped her hair as she walked aimlessly toward the river. The water glimmered beneath the moonlight. She clutched the ring around her neck, pressing it to her chest. "Forgive me, Alessandro," she whispered. "I'm keeping my promise. I'll disappear so you can live." That night, she packed her belongings quietly, leaving no trace behind. By dawn, she was gone from Florence. No address, no message, only silence. Across the hills in Siena, Alessandro stood in the vineyard alone. The vines shimmered in the early light, and in his pocket, the silver ring he once gave her felt colder than ever. He looked toward the road she had taken and whispered to the wind, "You can't disappear forever." 5 years passed. Florence had changed, but Isabella's life moved quietly, almost invisibly. The small house she rented near Santa Croce smelled of music sheets and ink. Every morning she taught piano to the daughters of noble families, soft-spoken girls who dreamed of applause and silk dresses. She smiled when they played wrong notes and corrected them gently, her voice calm, her heart elsewhere. She never spoke of Siena or the vineyard. Her name appeared only on the corner of lesson schedules, Miss Moretti, piano tutor. To most people she was polite and distant, with the dignity of someone who had seen too much to speak freely. In the evenings, after the students left, she would light a single candle, open her old wooden box, and stare at the small silver ring inside. She had stopped wearing it years ago, but she couldn't throw it away. It was the only proof that once she had been loved fiercely. One afternoon, Signora De Luca visited. Time had softened her features, but not her guilt. She stood in the doorway, hat in hand. "May I come in?" she asked. Isabella hesitated, then nodded. They sat at the table. The older woman looked around the modest room. "You've made a peaceful life for yourself. It's quiet," Isabella said simply. "Do you still hate me?" "I don't hate you," Isabella replied. "I just learned not to expect anything from anyone." De Luca sighed. "I heard about the Count's father. He passed away last spring." Isabella froze. "The Duke?" "Yes. It was in the papers. They say the son, your Alessandro, is now master of Ravello." Her breath caught, but she kept her tone steady. "I wish him peace." De Luca's eyes searched her face. "You loved him deeply." "I survived him," Isabella said. The older woman lowered her head. "Then you're stronger than I ever was." When she left, Isabella stood for a long time by the window, watching the street fill with evening light. The name Ravello echoed in her mind. She tried to silence it, but the past refused to stay buried. Weeks later, Florence buzzed with news. The new Count de Ravello had returned from abroad and was staying at his family's villa near Fiesole. Rumor said he refused to marry, that he spent his fortune on restoring vineyards and helping local farmers. Society called him eccentric. Women called him tragic. Isabella didn't believe gossip anymore. Yet one night, while attending a small charity concert where one of her pupils was to perform, she felt the air shift. She sat at the piano to accompany the girl. The audience was elegant, ladies in jewels, officers in uniform. The hall glowed with candlelight. When the last note ended, polite applause followed. Isabella rose, bowed slightly, and looked out over the crowd. Her heart stopped. He was there. Alessandro di Ravello stood near the back of the hall, taller, older, dressed in black. His eyes met hers across the distance, and time folded in half. The same gaze that once defied his father now pierced through years of silence. She turned quickly, pretending to gather her sheets, but her hands shook. After the performance, while guests congratulated the musicians, she tried to slip away. But as she stepped into the corridor, a voice behind her said softly, "5 years, and you still run from me." She froze. Slowly she turned. He was standing a few steps away, a faint smile on his lips. "Alessandro," she whispered, "you remember me. How could I forget?" He studied her face. "You haven't changed. Only your eyes, they're quieter now." She forced a calm tone. "You shouldn't be here, and yet I am." He took a step closer. "You knew I'd come back one day." "No," she said firmly. "I stopped waiting a long time ago." He didn't believe her. "Did you?" She looked away. "I have a life now. Modest, but mine. Please don't disturb it." "I'm not here to disturb it," he said. "I'm here because I couldn't forget you." "Forget me," she said, almost pleading. "That's what I asked for." He smiled sadly. "You asked for the impossible." The corridor fell silent. She could hear the faint echo of applause fading inside the hall. "I came tonight because I read your name on the program," he said. "I thought my heart was playing tricks on me, but it was real. You were real." She tried to keep her voice steady. "Why come now? My father's gone. His will was simple. Take what's mine and make it right. I came back to rebuild the vineyard. Yours. Ours, if you'll let it be." She shook her head. "There's no ours, Alessandro. That time ended." He looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes. "You still wear the same necklace." Her hand flew to her throat, where the ribbon had once held his ring. She had forgotten she put it on that morning. "It's only a habit." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Or a promise you never broke." "Please," she said, taking a step back. "People are watching. Let them. I can't be the cause of another scandal." "You think I care about scandal now?" "Yes," she said, "because you still have everything to lose." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "If that's what you believe, then I'll ask you one thing. Meet me tomorrow, just to talk." "Alessandro, tomorrow, at the gardens near San Miniato. Noon. No one will see." Before she could refuse, he bowed slightly and walked away. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. The memory of his face, his voice, his nearness, it all returned like a storm she'd thought had passed. She paced the room, telling herself she wouldn't go. But when the sun rose, she found herself walking toward San Miniato anyway. He was waiting by the fountain, sunlight on his hair. When he saw her, his expression softened. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I shouldn't have." "Then I'm grateful you did." They walked among the cypress trees, the city below them shimmering in the heat. "I read about your work," he said. "They say your students adore you." "They're kind," she replied, "and they don't ask questions." He smiled faintly. "I've asked too many in my life." She stopped walking. "Then stop asking, Alessandro. Let this end before it starts again." He turned to face her. "Why are you still afraid?" "Because love doesn't change the world we live in," she said quietly. "It only makes us forget it for a moment." "I'd rather forget forever." "You can't," she said. "You have responsibilities, Land, people who depend on you." "And what about you?" he asked. "What do you depend on?" She looked down. "Music." "And silence," he said softly. She didn't answer. After a long pause, he spoke again. "There's something I need to tell you. My father, before he died, confessed what he did. The letters, the threats. He ruined us because he thought it would save our name. I spent years hating him for it, Her eyes filled with tears. Then, it wasn't my imagination. He truly sent those men, those lies. Yes, she wiped her face quickly. It's over now. Let it rest. He shook his head. Not until I make it right. How? He took her hand gently. By asking you again. Don't. Marry me, Isabella. Her heart stopped. He held her gaze. This time there's no father to forbid it. No lies between us. Only choice. She stepped back, tears shining in her eyes. You think it's so simple. It can be. No, she said, because I've learned what happens after the story ends. People don't forgive, they never forget. They'll whisper that I took your fortune, that I bewitched you again. I can't live under that shadow. He moved closer. Then I'll shield you from it. You can't shield me from what they think. Let them think what they want, he said fiercely. They've taken enough from us. She shook her head. You're too late, Alessandro. That girl who danced with you at the palace, she's gone. He stared at her, searching her eyes. Then tell me you don't love me. Say it and I'll leave. She opened her mouth, but no words came. He smiled sadly. You can't. Because it doesn't matter, she whispered. Love isn't enough. It's everything. It used to be, she said. Not anymore. He stood silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, If you walk away today, I won't follow again. She looked at him, trembling. That's what you said last time. This time I mean it. Her voice broke. Then this is goodbye. He nodded slowly, his eyes full of pain. Goodbye, Isabella. She turned and walked away without looking back. That evening, as the sun set over Florence, she sat at her piano, pressing the same note again and again, until tears blurred her vision. She didn't notice the letter that had slipped under her door until hours later. The handwriting was unfamiliar. She unfolded it, reading the few lines inside. Signorina Moretti, forgive my intrusion. I was once a steward in the house of Ravello. Before his death, the Duke ordered that certain documents remain sealed. One concerns you. I beg you to meet me tomorrow at the Piazza della Repubblica, near the fountain. It may change what you believe about your past. She lowered the paper slowly, her pulse racing. The morning air was sharp and restless. Isabella walked quickly through the narrow streets of Florence, the letter from the mysterious steward clutched in her hand. The city was waking, merchants opening their stalls, carriages clattering over cobblestones, but she barely noticed any of it. Her heart beat fast, not with fear, but with a strange, uneasy hope. When she reached the Piazza della Repubblica, the fountain glimmered in the pale light. A man stood beside it, tall, wrapped in a worn grey coat, his hat pulled low. He looked like someone who'd travelled through too many years of silence. Signorina Moretti, he asked quietly when she approached. Yes, she said. You said you served the house of Ravello. He nodded, removing his hat. I was the Duke's steward for 20 years. My name is Carlo Venturi. Why write to me now after so long? Because I made a promise to a dying man, he said. The Duke left letters to be delivered upon his death. One was meant for his son, another for you. Her breath caught. For me? He reached into his coat and produced a sealed envelope bearing the Ravello crest. It was marked with your name. The Duke ordered it kept secret until his passing. Her hands trembled as she took it. Why would he write to me? I cannot say, Carlo replied, but he seemed remorseful. She stared at the seal for a long moment, then looked up at him. Did Alessandro receive his letter too? Yes. I delivered it myself. Do you know what it said? I do not. But I know his expression when he read it. It was the look of a man who learns the truth too late. Before she could ask more, Carlo bowed. I've done what was asked of me. Whatever happens now belongs to you. He walked away, leaving her alone by the fountain. She broke the seal with trembling fingers. The letter inside was short, written in the Duke's heavy hand. Signorina Moretti, you must believe that what I did was done to preserve my son's future, though I see now that it destroyed his heart. The debt your father owed me was not a punishment, but an arrangement, one he accepted willingly. In exchange for my protection, he swore that you would never seek my son again. But I went further than he knew. I ensured you would not see Alessandro's letters, intercepting each one before it reached you. For this, I cannot ask forgiveness, only that you understand. I feared scandal more than I valued truth. If you ever see my son again, tell him his father's pride was built on lies. Tell him I beg his pardon, and yours." The paper shook in her hands. Around her, the city blurred. She could hardly breathe. "He lied to us both," she whispered. She folded the letter and tucked it against her chest, her mind racing. The years of silence, the lost letters, her father's illness, all of it had been orchestrated by the Duke's deceit. Without thinking, she began walking. She didn't know where she was going until she found herself standing in front of the Ravello townhouse near the Arno. The gates were closed, guarded by servants in dark livery. "I must speak with the Count di Ravello," she said to one of them. The man hesitated. "His lordship receives no visitors without appointment. Tell him it's Isabella Moretti," she said. "He'll see me." The servant blinked, uncertain, then disappeared inside. Minutes stretched into eternity. Finally, the gates opened. "This way, Signorina," the servant said. She followed him through the courtyard and into the grand hall. The place smelled of dust and old grief. When the servant led her to the library, Alessandro stood by the window, a glass of wine in his hand. He turned at the sound of her steps. For a moment, neither spoke. "You came," he said quietly. "I had to." His eyes fell on the letter in her hand. "So you've read it?" "Yes." "And you?" He nodded once. "This morning." "Then you know what your father did?" "I know," he said, his voice strained. "And I know now that everything we suffered, every distance, every silence, was built on his lies." She stepped closer. "He intercepted our letters. He paid my father to keep me away from you." "I never stopped writing," Alessandro said, his voice breaking. "I wrote until my hand bled. I thought you'd chosen pride over me. And I thought you'd forgotten me," she whispered. "That you'd found someone else." He shook his head. "There was never anyone else." Tears filled her eyes. "Then all those years were stolen from us?" "Yes," he said softly. "But we can take back what's left." She looked at him, torn between joy and disbelief. "It's not that simple." "It could be," he said. "The past is gone. What matters is what we do now." She shook her head. "You think a letter can undo 5 years of pain? The world won't forget what we were." "I don't care about the world anymore, Isabella." "You should," she said, "because it still belongs to you." He took her hands gently. "It only belongs to me if you're in it." Her tears spilled over. "You say that as if love alone can erase everything." "Maybe it can," he said. "Maybe that's the only thing that ever could." Before she could reply, a knock sounded at the door. The butler entered, bowing. "My lord, forgive me. There's a visitor. A gentleman wishes to see you, urgent business from Siena." "I'm occupied," Alessandro said without turning. The butler hesitated. "He insists, my lord. Says it concerns the estate." Alessandro frowned. "Send him in." The door opened, and a man stepped inside, broad-shouldered, elegantly dressed with a smooth smile. Isabella recognized him instantly. Vittorio Mancini, a baron from Florence who had once courted her briefly years ago. "Baron Mancini," Alessandro said coolly. "To what do I owe this interruption?" "I didn't come to you, my lord," Vittorio replied, his eyes on Isabella. "I came for her." Alessandro's tone hardened. "You'll explain yourself." Vittorio smiled faintly. "Miss Moretti and I are old acquaintances. I simply wish to warn her before she makes another mistake." "I don't need your concern," Isabella said sharply. "Oh, but you do," he replied. "Florence is already whispering. They say the Count's reputation will crumble again because of you. The papers will print it soon enough. You'll destroy him a second time." Alessandro stepped forward. "Enough. Leave before I have you removed." Vittorio's smile didn't fade. "You think your name will protect you? It won't. The nobles remember everything. They always do. I'm offering her a way out. Marriage, respect, safety. What do you offer, Count? More scandal?" Isabella's face went pale. "You dare—" "Be quiet," Alessandro said, his voice cold as steel. "If you speak to her again, I'll forget I was born a gentleman." Vittorio adjusted his gloves calmly. "Then consider my offer declined. But don't say I didn't warn you. The court of Florence is already preparing to challenge your estate, my lord. When they do, they'll use her name to do it." He bowed slightly toward Isabella. "Good day, Signorina." When he was gone, silence filled the room. Isabella pressed a hand to her chest. He's telling the truth. They'll use me against you. Let them try, Alessandro said. No, she insisted. Don't you see? The Duke's lies can't protect us now. The truth has come too late. He looked at her, his eyes dark with resolve. Then we'll make new truth, together. She shook her head, trembling. You can't fight all of Florence. I can fight anyone who dares to hurt you, Alessandro. He grabbed her hands, holding them tight. Marry me. Now, before they tear us apart again. I won't lose you to lies or gossip or cowards like Mancini. Her eyes widened. You can't mean... I mean every word, he said fiercely. We'll marry quietly before anyone can stop it. She felt her knees weaken. If I say yes, your name... My name means nothing without you. Tears slid down her cheeks. Why must you always speak like that? Because it's true. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened gently. Do you love me still? He asked. She couldn't answer. Her silence said everything. He smiled faintly. Then it settled. She stared at him, torn between terror and joy. You're making another mistake, Alessandro. I've made plenty. Loving you was never one of them. He kissed her hand, and she closed her eyes, lost for a heartbeat in the warmth of it. Outside, the bells of Florence began to ring, their echo carrying through the window like a warning and a blessing at once. When she opened her eyes, Alessandro said softly, Meet me at the vineyard in 2 days. I'll have the priest ready. She hesitated. And if I don't come? He smiled. Then I'll know you never stopped loving me, but that you were braver than I could ever be. She stood frozen as he walked her to the door. The hallway outside seemed endless. Once she stepped into the street, the noise of the city surrounded her again. Voices, wheels, bells, but she heard none of it. She walked aimlessly until she reached the bridge over the Arno. Leaning against the stone railing, she unfolded the Duke's letter once more. The words blurred in the sunlight. Her lips trembled as she whispered, Father of pride, Father of ruin, you took everything from us, and now your son would give everything back. A gust of wind tore the letter from her hands. She watched it flutter into the river and vanish beneath the water. The note trembled in Isabella's hands as she read it again under the flickering light of her candle. If you love him, come to the vineyard before the harvest or lose him forever. The words struck like a heartbeat. She pressed the letter against her chest, unable to breathe. Outside, the streets of Florence were quiet. Only the faint hum of distant voices and carriage wheels drifted through the shutters. Isabella paced the small room, her mind a storm of memories and doubts. Alessandro's voice echoed in her thoughts, his plea, his promise, his stubborn hope. She tried to reason with herself. To go meant scandal, whispers, danger. To stay meant silence, and the certainty that she would lose him again. At dawn, she packed a small trunk and left without a word to anyone. The road to Siena was long and dusty. The late summer sun burned high, and vineyards rolled endlessly on both sides. Every turn of the carriage wheel brought her closer to a place she had tried so hard to forget. When the coach finally stopped at the familiar gate of the Ravello vineyard, she hesitated. Her heart pounded as she stepped down. Workers looked up from the vines, whispering her name like a rumor returned to life. The steward approached. The Count is expecting you, Signorina. He's by the west field. She nodded and followed the path through the golden rows of vines. The air was heavy with the scent of ripening grapes. When she saw him at last, tall, coat undone, hair tousled by wind, her steps faltered. He turned before she could speak. His face lit up with something like relief. You came. I wasn't sure I would, she said softly. I knew you would. She tried to smile, but her voice trembled. You shouldn't be so certain of me. After all these years, I know only one thing, he said. You always choose your heart, even when it costs you everything. Then you remember me wrongly, she replied. Last time I chose pride. And it broke us both. They stood in silence, the sound of wind brushing through the vines between them. Finally, Alessandro stepped closer. The letters my father kept from us. The lies. The years. They're gone now. We can start again. You make it sound simple, she said. It is. I'll face the world this time. No more hiding. She looked at him, searching for the young man she had once loved. He was there, but harder now, tempered by loss. And if the world refuses to forgive, then it will learn to. She shook her head slowly. It's not just your world anymore, Alessandro. It's mine too, and I know what it does to women like me. He reached for her hand. Then we'll face it together. His fingers brushed hers, and she let them linger. For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. The moment broke when footsteps approached from behind. A servant appeared, breathless. "My lord, forgive me. The Baron, Vittorio Mancini. He's arrived." Alessandro's face darkened. "He dares to show himself here?" "Yes, my lord. He demands to speak with you both." Isabella stiffened. "With me?" Alessandro took her arm protectively. "You'll stay here." "No," she said firmly. "Whatever he wants, I'll hear it too." They walked toward the courtyard, where Vittorio waited beside his carriage. He was dressed elegantly, his smile sharp as glass. "Ah, the lovers of Tuscany," he said mockingly. "What a picture!" Alessandro's tone was icy. "You were not invited." "I come on behalf of the Council of Florence," Vittorio said, holding up a folded document. "You've heard of the investigation into your estate's ownership?" Alessandro frowned. "The matter is closed." "Not quite," Vittorio replied smoothly. "A new witness has come forward, one claiming that the deed transferring this vineyard was forged with the help of a certain piano teacher." Isabella's face drained of color. "That's a lie." "Perhaps," Vittorio said with a shrug, "but it's a convincing one, and once the gossip papers print it, you'll be ruined, Count." "Get out," Alessandro said through his teeth. "Not before I offer a solution," Vittorio continued. "Withdraw your proposal to this woman, publicly. Denounce her as the deceiver she is, and I'll make sure the case disappears." Isabella stared at him in disbelief. "You'd destroy us just to prove a point?" "Not destroy," he said calmly. "Protect. The world is cruel to men who love beneath their station, and crueler to women who make them." Alessandro stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mancini." The Baron smiled. "Am I? Then play wisely, Count. If you defy the council, you'll lose your title, your land, your fortune. Think of your family name." "I have no family left but her," Alessandro said. Vittorio's smile faltered for the first time. "Then you're a greater fool than I thought." He turned to Isabella, eyes narrowing. "And you, my dear, don't think the people will see you as a victim. They'll call you what they always do. Ambitious, dishonorable, the ruin of noble men." Her hands clenched at her sides. "Say what you wish, but I'll not be shamed by your lies." Vittorio chuckled softly. "You already are. The moment you stepped on this land again, your name was finished." Alessandro moved so quickly that no one saw it coming. He seized the Baron by the collar, voice shaking with fury. "Leave before I forget the law entirely." Vittorio stared at him, startled by the cold rage in his eyes. Then he smiled again, straightening his coat. "Very well. But remember this, Florence never forgives, and when the council calls for you, no title will save you." He climbed into his carriage and drove away, the wheels crunching over gravel until the sound faded. For a long moment, silence hung over the courtyard. Isabella turned to Alessandro. "He's right. They won't forgive. I don't need their forgiveness," he said. "Only yours." "There's nothing to forgive. There's everything," he replied. "You paid for my family's sins. I won't let you pay again." She looked at him helplessly. "And what can you do?" He exhaled slowly. "I can tell them the truth." "What truth?" "That my father destroyed your life, not you. That every lie began with his pride, not your ambition. I'll tell them before the council itself." She shook her head, horrified. "They'll destroy you for speaking against your father's memory." "So be it," he said. "They've already destroyed enough." She stepped closer, gripping his arm. "Don't you see? This is exactly what they want. To see you fall. To prove that loving me was your undoing." He looked down at her, eyes steady. "Then I'll fall with pride. Please, Alessandro, don't do this." "I must. For us." The workers nearby pretended not to listen, but their faces were tense, their hands still. Rumors had begun to stir, whispers spreading through the estate like wildfire. By nightfall, every servant in Siena would know. The Count was defying Florence for the sake of a woman who had once been his family's disgrace. That evening, Isabella sat alone in the old vineyard house, staring out at the fields bathed in the red light of sunset. When Alessandro entered, she didn't turn. "I should go back to Florence," she said quietly. "No, They'll question you soon. If I'm gone, they'll stop. They won't. They'll think you fled because you were guilty. Then let them think it, she said bitterly. He walked behind her, his hands resting on the back of her chair. You can't protect me by disappearing, Isabella. Not again. She turned to face him, tears in her eyes. And you can't save me by sacrificing yourself. I'm not sacrificing anything, he said. I'm reclaiming what was stolen from us. She shook her head. You don't understand how relentless they are. The nobles will never allow this, not after what happened before. I don't need their permission to love you. Love isn't the problem, she whispered. It's the cost. He knelt before her, taking her hands. Then let me pay it. Her voice broke. Alessandro, please. But he silenced her with a touch to her cheek. Tomorrow I'll ride to Florence. I'll face the council and tell them everything. You'll see. Truth has more power than fear. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to that hope. But something inside her knew that the truth had never protected anyone in their world. Late that night, while the house slept, Isabella wrote a letter. Her hand trembled as she sealed it, tears staining the ink. When she was done, she placed it on the table where Alessandro would find it. At dawn, she left quietly, taking only her cloak and a small purse of coins. She walked down the hill toward the road that led back to Florence, heart heavy but certain. Behind her, the first light touched the vineyard, painting the leaves gold. When Alessandro woke, he found her letter waiting. He tore it open and read her words, his hands shaking. Forgive me. I cannot let you destroy yourself for me. If the world demands a villain, let it be me again. I will confess to whatever they say, protect your name, and live free of my shadow. Isabella. He crushed the letter in his fist, rage and anguish twisting inside him. No, he whispered. Not this time. He ran outside, shouting for his horse. Prepare to ride, he ordered the stableman. To Florence, now. The servant stared as he galloped down the road, the sun rising behind him. Florence was alive with whispers. The news spread faster than the morning bells. The Count di Ravello had announced before the city council that he would marry Isabella Moretti, the daughter of a disgraced merchant, defying every law of pride that held the nobility together. Servants gossiped in markets, nobles gasped behind closed fans, and the newspapers printed it with delight. A scandal of love and ruin in the house of Ravello. The city had its spectacle, and it burned Isabella's name into every tongue. She sat in a rented room above a small dressmaker's shop, the window shutters half closed. Through the cracks, she could hear the chaos outside, carriages rushing, people shouting, the sound of a world turning against her once more. When Signora De Luca burst through the door, out of breath and pale, Isabella didn't even rise. You've seen the papers? The older woman asked. I've heard the voices, Isabella said softly. He stood before the entire council, De Luca whispered. He said he would rather be stripped of his title than deny you. He swore to marry you before the next moon. Isabella closed her eyes, her heart twisting. He's doomed himself. You must stop him. I tried, Isabella said, staring at the floor. He doesn't listen. De Luca sank into a chair. They're furious. The old families, the guilds, the merchants, everyone who ever envied the Ravellos. They'll destroy him. Then they'll destroy me first, Isabella murmured. Do you still love him? She didn't answer. Silence was enough. De Luca leaned forward. If you truly love him, you'll find a way to save him. There's one man who can help. The Baron, Mancini. He has influence with the council. If you ask him to intervene, perhaps he'll calm them. Isabella shook her head. That man only helps when it serves him. Then make it serve him, De Luca urged. Swallow your pride. You've done it before for love. Isabella turned toward the window. Outside, the bells of Santa Maria Novella rang sharply, announcing the hour. Where is Mancini now? At his villa near the river. But Isabella, be careful. He doesn't forgive easily. I don't need his forgiveness, she said. Only his silence. By evening, she stood before the Baron's grand villa, her hands trembling beneath her cloak. 2 guards let her in at once, clearly expecting her. Mancini waited in the drawing room, a glass of wine in hand, the smug calm of a man who already knew he'd won. Miss Moretti, he said, rising. To what do I owe this honor? You've heard what Alessandro said. Oh, yes, Mancini replied, smiling thinly. The whole city has. The noble fool wants to marry his scandal. How touching. I came to ask you to stop this. Speak to the council. Tell them to leave him be. And why would I do that? He asked, circling her slowly. He's my rival in land, in influence, and once in affection. Because you can still have what you want, she said quietly. If you protect him, I'll leave Florence forever. I'll write a letter declaring the rumors true, that I deceived him, that he was my victim. It will destroy my name, not his. Mancini laughed softly. You'd sacrifice yourself again? How noble, how predictable. Do we have an agreement? He studied her for a long moment, eyes gleaming. You always underestimate me, Isabella. I don't need your letter. The city already believes you're guilty. What I want is to see you beg for him. She met his gaze without flinching. Then consider it done. I'm begging you. For the first time, his smile faded. He set down the glass. You'll write the confession tonight. I'll deliver it to the council myself. She nodded, her voice steady. Give me paper and ink. When she finished writing, she handed him the folded page. He read the first line aloud. I, Isabella Moretti, confess that I deceived the Count de Ravello for personal gain. Satisfied, he tucked it into his coat. The Count will curse your name by morning, he said. She whispered, if it keeps him safe, he can curse me all his life. Mancini escorted her to the door. You're a remarkable woman, he said. Too remarkable for your own good. She left without answering. That night, Alessandro stormed into Florence, his coat covered in dust from the ride. The guards at the council chamber tried to stop him, but he pushed past them. Inside, the hall was lit with torches, filled with murmuring nobles and councilmen. I will not hear another lie about her, he shouted. If the council dares accuse her again, it accuses me too. Count de Ravello, said the head councillor, his tone cold, we have received a written confession from Miss Moretti herself. The room fell silent. Alessandro froze. What did you say? The councillor held up a paper, the ink still fresh. She admits to deceiving you, to forging documents that transferred property from your family to her own benefit. Do you deny it? Alessandro's voice cracked with disbelief. She would never— The letter bears her signature, the man interrupted. Delivered by Baron Mancini this very hour. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Alessandro's fists tightened. You've been deceived. Mancini forged it. Do you have proof? No, he said, voice raw. But I know her heart. The councillor's eyes were cold. Your father's name still carries weight, Count. Do not throw it away for a woman who has already confessed her guilt. Alessandro turned sharply and stormed from the chamber. Outside, the night wind howled down the streets. He mounted his horse and rode toward Mancini's villa, fury driving him faster than thought. When he arrived, the Baron was waiting at the door, almost as if he'd known he would come. Count, Mancini said smoothly, I assume you've read the letter. Alessandro dismounted and strode up the steps. You forged it. Did I? Mancini smiled. It bears her handwriting. Her hand shook, I admit, but she signed it willingly. You forced her. I offered her a choice, Mancini said calmly. She chose you as always. Pity her choice cost her everything. Alessandro's voice was low and dangerous. You'll regret this. Threats? Really, my lord, how dull. If you want the letter back, it's too late. The council already has copies. The city believes her guilty. Your reputation may yet survive if you denounce her publicly. Do it quickly, and they might even forgive your recklessness. I'd rather live disgraced than betray her again, Alessandro said. Mancini's smile faded. Then you'll lose everything. Then so be it. He turned and left, the sound of hooves echoing into the night. By dawn, Florence was in an uproar. Pamphlets circulated with headlines accusing Isabella of fraud and deceit. Her name became the scandal of the season. Students mocked her in the streets, and even her former pupils' families refused to see her. She packed her things quietly, preparing to leave. But before she could step outside, the door burst open. Alessandro stood there, eyes wild from exhaustion. You lied to them, he said. Why? She froze, her hands still gripping her trunk. Because they would have destroyed you. They've destroyed you instead, he shouted. How could you think this was protection? It's the only way I know, she whispered. The only way that works. He walked to her, grabbed her shoulders. You think I want to live in a world that wins by destroying you? That isn't protection, it's surrender. You don't understand. They hate me, Alessandro. They always will. But they still respect you. Not after this. I told them I would not deny you. I never will. She tried to pull away. Don't make it worse. I'm not leaving until you come with me, he said firmly. We're leaving Florence together. Today. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. We can't outrun what we are. He wiped her tears gently. We can try. Where would we go? To the vineyard. To anywhere they can't find us. Her voice trembled. You'd give up everything for that? For you, yes. The door suddenly creaked open again. Signora De Luca entered, her face pale. You must hurry, she said breathlessly. Mancini is furious. The council is meeting again tonight. They mean to strip Alessandro of his title entirely. Isabella turned to Alessandro. You see, there's no escape. Leave me and you can still save yourself. He shook his head. Not without you. De Luca wrung her hands. Then you must go now, before they come for you both. Alessandro looked at Isabella, eyes full of resolve. We leave tonight. No more running from shadows. He took her hand, and for the first time since the council's verdict, she didn't resist. That night, they slipped out of Florence, riding beneath the silver light of the moon. The road stretched ahead, empty and silent, the vineyards dark against the horizon. When they reached the hill overlooking Siena, Alessandro stopped his horse. Once we cross that valley, he said quietly, there's no turning back. Isabella looked at him, her eyes shining. I never thought I'd see it again. He smiled faintly. It's where it all began. Maybe it's where it will begin again. They rode down the hill together, the wind cold against their faces. But back in Florence, Baron Mancini stood before the council, a grim smile on his lips. They've fled, he announced. And that is all the proof you need. The councilman murmured in agreement. Issue the decree, the head said. The Count di Ravello is to be stripped of title and land. His name will be erased from the registry of nobility. Mancini bowed slightly. As you command. The messenger's horse stumbled to a halt on the dusty road, foam at its mouth, the rider's voice cracking as he shouted again. By order of the council, the House of Ravello no longer exists. Alessandro froze. For a moment, the words didn't make sense. Then they sank in, sharp and cold. He straightened slowly, his hand tightening on the reins. What did you say? The messenger, pale and trembling, held out a scroll sealed with red wax. They've stripped you of title and property, my lord. The vineyards, the estates, everything. They say you've betrayed your rank. Isabella felt her knees weaken. No, she whispered. They can't. Alessandro took the scroll, broke the seal, and read quickly. His face hardened with each line. They can, he said quietly. And they have. The messenger hesitated. There's more. The council orders you to present yourself in Florence within 3 days to answer for your defiance. If you don't— If I don't, Alessandro interrupted, folding the letter, they'll send guards to drag me there. The man nodded, avoiding his eyes. I'm sorry, my lord. There's no lord left, Alessandro said bitterly. Go. Tell them you delivered their decree. The messenger turned and galloped away, leaving silence behind. Isabella reached for Alessandro's hand, but he stepped away, pacing toward the vines. It's over, he said. The name, the land, it's all gone. Let it go, she said softly. They've taken enough. He turned sharply. It's not just about pride, Isabella. These people worked for me, depended on me. Without the Ravello name, the vineyard dies. We can rebuild it. How? As what? A farmer and his ruined lover? She flinched. Don't call me that. His anger vanished instantly. Forgive me, he said, his voice breaking. I didn't mean— Yes, you did, she said, stepping closer. And you're right. We are ruined in their eyes. But we're free, Alessandro. For the first time, you can choose your life. He looked at her, torn between fury and disbelief. Freedom without purpose is a kind of death. Then let's give it purpose, she said. Stay here with me. Forget Florence. He shook his head. They'll come for me. Then let them. You've done nothing wrong. He laughed bitterly. You still believe justice exists. I believe in you, she said quietly. That silenced him. He looked away, jaw tight. You shouldn't. Then stop giving me reasons not to. They stood there as the wind rustled through the vines, carrying the faint scent of crushed grapes. The harvest had begun early, the workers moving slowly in the fields, unaware of what had just been lost. By sunset, the news had spread through the valley. Some workers left, afraid of losing their wages. Others stayed out of loyalty. Isabella moved among them, steadying trembling hands, offering calm words. Alessandro watched from a distance, guilt written across his face. When darkness fell, he found her sitting on the steps of the old house, her dress stained with dust. She didn't look up when he approached. "They're leaving," he said quietly. "I know. They think I can't protect them." "Can you?" He hesitated. "Not anymore." She looked at him then, eyes full of tired tenderness. "Then stop trying to be their count, be their friend." He sat beside her, elbows on his knees. "I don't know how to be anything else." "Learn," she said simply. "You've rebuilt vineyards before. You can rebuild yourself." He gave a hollow laugh. "And you? What about me? After all this, you still stay." "I'm too stubborn to leave," she said softly. He smiled for the first time that day. "That's the woman I remember." For a while they said nothing. Crickets filled the silence. The stars rose over the hills like small mercies. The next morning, Isabella woke to the sound of hammering. Outside, Alessandro was working with the remaining men, repairing fences, hauling barrels, doing the work of 10. His shirt was torn, his hands raw, but he moved with purpose. "You're supposed to rest," she said, walking toward him. He smiled faintly. "I'm not a count anymore. I can work now." She frowned. "You'll kill yourself." "I need to do something," he said. "If I stop, I'll think." She touched his arm gently. "Then think of tomorrow, not yesterday." He looked at her, eyes weary. "Tomorrow might not come." "It always does," she said, "whether we want it or not." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we'll face it together." Days passed. Letters came from Florence, each one colder than the last. Demands, threats, the promise of punishment. Alessandro ignored them all. He worked the land with his own hands, and Isabella taught the children of the workers to read and play music. For a time, peace returned, fragile but real. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the vines, Alessandro spoke quietly. "I used to think love was something noble, something meant to elevate us. And now?" she asked. "Now I think it's something that humbles us," he said. "Takes everything, gives nothing, and still we can't live without it." She smiled sadly. "Then maybe it's both." He turned to her. "Do you regret it? Loving me?" She hesitated. "Every day," she said softly, "and every night. I thank God I did." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but the peace didn't last. A week later, riders came from Florence, 4 men bearing the council's crest. They demanded audience with Alessandro. The workers scattered, fear rippling through the fields. The leader of the riders dismounted. "By order of the council, you are to surrender the estate and return to Florence for sentencing." "I no longer recognize the council," Alessandro said. "Then we'll take you by force." Isabella stepped forward. "He's done nothing wrong." The rider's gaze flicked to her. "Miss Moretti, your confession was enough. The case is closed." "That confession was false," she cried. The man ignored her. "Count di Ravello, your time as a noble is over. Do not make this harder." Alessandro's voice was calm. "If you wish to take me, I'll go. But you'll leave her out of this." The man nodded. "As long as she stays silent." Isabella grabbed Alessandro's hand. "No. Don't let them." He squeezed her fingers gently. "It's all right. I'll go. Maybe it's time to end this properly." He turned to the men. "Give me 1 hour." The leader hesitated. "Half an hour. Then we ride." Alessandro nodded. When they left to water their horses, he turned back to Isabella. "You can't go," she said. "They'll destroy you." "I can't run forever," he said softly. "If I go willingly, maybe they'll listen." "They won't." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll make them." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, Alessandro." He brushed his thumb across her cheek. "Do you trust me?" "Yes," she whispered. "And that's what terrifies me." He leaned closer, his voice low. "Whatever happens, remember this. No council, no title, no decree can erase what we are. That's ours to keep. She nodded, tears spilling down her face. When the riders returned, he mounted his horse. Isabella watched, trembling, as he turned to look at her one last time. "I'll come back," he said. "I promise." Then he rode away. The vineyard fell silent after they vanished down the road. The workers gathered around Isabella, waiting, uncertain. "What will happen now?" one of them asked. She swallowed hard. "We wait." Days turned into weeks. No message came. Florence remained silent. The vines began to wither without his care, and the workers drifted away one by one. Still Isabella stayed. Every dawn she stood at the gate, scanning the road. One evening, as the sky burned orange, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the path. Carlo Venturi, the old steward. He dismounted slowly, his face drawn. "Carlo," she said, rushing forward. "Where is he?" "Did they release him?" The old man shook his head. "No, signorina. He was never tried." She felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "He stood before the council and confessed, took your guilt upon himself, said he forged the documents, that you were innocent. Before they could pass sentence, he left the chamber and walked away. No one has seen him since." Isabella's hand went to her mouth. "He lied for me." Carlo nodded. "He saved your name, but he's vanished." The council closed the matter. To them, the Count di Ravello is dead. Her eyes filled with tears. "No, he can't be gone." Carlo placed a hand on her shoulder. "If there's one thing I know about that man, it's that he'll find his way back to you. One way or another." He left her standing by the vineyard gate, the wind carrying the scent of harvest through the twilight. She looked at the empty road, her heart breaking and hoping all at once. "Isabella!" The sound of her name came from behind her, low and trembling, like a prayer escaping the dark. She turned sharply, the world spinning for a heartbeat before her eyes found him. Alessandro stood at the edge of the path, thin, dusty, his clothes torn, his face shadowed with exhaustion. But he was real, alive. She ran to him before her mind could catch up. He caught her in his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. They said many things," he murmured, "most of them lies." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "Where have you been?" "Nowhere worth naming," he said. "When I left Florence, I wanted to disappear, but every road led me back here." She touched his face, her fingers tracing the hollow beneath his cheekbone. "You're hurt." He smiled faintly. "Only tired. I walked half the way. I needed to see if you were still waiting. I never stopped," she said. For a moment, neither spoke. The vineyard around them was quiet, except for the soft rustle of vines in the evening breeze. The sky was fading into gold and purple. He took her hand, his voice steady despite the tremor in it. "They've taken everything, Isabella. My title, my land, my name. But they can't take this." Her fingers tightened around his. "What will we do now?" "Start again," he said simply. "Not as the Count and his scandal, but as two people who refuse to stop loving each other." She blinked back tears. "Do you still believe we can?" "I don't believe," he said softly. "I know." He leaned in, resting his forehead against hers. "Marry me, Isabella, here now, before the world has another chance to tear us apart." Her breath caught. "You still want that? After everything?" "I've wanted nothing else since the night we danced," he said. "We've lived through lies and loss. We've lost everything except what matters." Her eyes filled. "We have nothing to offer each other. We have our hands," he whispered. "Our hearts." "That's enough." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Then yes. Yes, Alessandro, I'll marry you." His smile broke through the weariness, bright and alive. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it as if it were sacred. "Then let's make it true." He led her toward the chapel on the hill, a small stone building that had once belonged to the estate. The doors were worn, the bell silent, but when they stepped inside, it was filled with the scent of old wood and candle wax. A single priest, an old friend of Alessandro's family, knelt by the altar. He looked up, startled. "My lord." "No titles," Alessandro said gently. "Just a man asking for a blessing." The priest's eyes softened when he saw Isabella. "You've both been through enough," he said quietly. "Perhaps it's time for peace." He lit 2 candles and stood before them. "Do you have witnesses?" Alessandro glanced toward the open door. Outside, the workers who had remained stood at the edge of the vineyard, drawn by curiosity. One of them, an older woman, stepped forward shyly. "We'll witness," she said. "We've seen enough sorrow. Let us see joy too." The priest nodded. "Then let us begin." Isabella's hands trembled as Alessandro took them in his. The priest's voice rose gently in the quiet chapel, the words simple and timeless. "Do you, Alessandro di Ravello, take this woman?" "I do," he said firmly. "To love, to honor, to stand beside, for all your days." "I do," he repeated, his voice breaking slightly. "And do you, Isabella Moretti, take this man to share your life for richer or poorer, in shadow or in light?" "I do," she whispered. The priest smiled, raising his hands. "Then by the grace of God, I declare you joined. What love has redeemed, let no pride divide again." The small group of workers clapped softly, tears glimmering in their eyes. Isabella laughed through her own tears, the sound light and free. Alessandro pulled her close and kissed her, gentle at first, then deep as if sealing years of loss into a single breath. When they parted, the setting sun cast a golden glow through the chapel windows, bathing them both in light. "It feels like a dream," she said. "It's the only thing that's ever been real," he replied. They stepped outside together, hand in hand. The workers gathered around them, smiling, cheering softly. Someone brought out bottles of wine saved from the last harvest. Someone else began to sing. The vineyard came alive again that night. Alessandro and Isabella walked among their people, no longer lord and lady, but equals. He laughed more than he had in years, his eyes never leaving her. She moved easily beside him, no longer hiding from the world. When the stars appeared, they sat on the grass near the edge of the vines. The air smelled of grapes and warm earth. "I used to dream of this place," Isabella said quietly, "even when I was far away." "So did I," he said. "But in my dreams you were never real, now you're here." She smiled. "You've always been stubborn, Count di Ravello." He grinned. "That name doesn't belong to me anymore." "Then what should I call you?" He thought for a moment. "Call me Alessandro. The man who belongs to you." She laughed softly. "And what will you call me?" "My heart," he said simply. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" "Maybe not," he said. "But someday they'll tell our story differently. They'll say the Count who lost everything found the only thing that mattered." She tilted her face up to him. "And the woman?" "They'll say she taught him how to be free." They fell silent again, the night wrapping around them like a promise. A breeze moved through the vines, carrying the faint hum of a song from the workers below. It was an old tune, one Isabella's father had loved. She began to hum along, her voice low and warm. Alessandro listened, smiling. "I remember that song," he said. "You played it the night we met." "And you asked me to dance," she said. "I was terrified." "You were radiant," he said. She turned toward him, her eyes shining. "Do you regret anything?" He shook his head. "Not even the pain. It brought me here." "Then we've finally won," she said. He smiled. "We didn't win, Isabella. We endured. That's stronger." They stayed there until the moon climbed high. When they finally rose, Alessandro took her hand again. "Tomorrow," he said, "we start the harvest together." "You plan to work?" she teased. "Of course," he said. "I'm just a farmer now." She laughed. "Then I suppose I'll play for the workers while they pick the grapes." "Perfect," he said. "Music and wine. What more could we want?" As they walked back toward the house, the light of the chapel flickered behind them like a silent witness. The vineyard glowed silver under the moon, alive again. In the days that followed, word spread quietly across the hills. The disgraced Count had married his lost love, and the vineyard that once lay in ruin was thriving again. No one dared to challenge them. Even Florence, weary of scandal, turned its gaze elsewhere. Isabella taught music to the children of the workers, her laughter echoing across the fields. Alessandro worked beside his men, unrecognizable from the nobleman he once was. When the harvest ended, the barrels filled with the first vintage of their new life, they named it La Rinascita, the rebirth. On the night of the first tasting, the workers gathered again in the courtyard. Lanterns swung from the trees, and the air buzzed with celebration. Isabella stood with a glass of wine in her hand, her dress simple, her hair loose. Alessandro raised his glass. To love, he said. The only inheritance worth keeping. The crowd cheered, and Isabella smiled through tears. She turned to him. To love, she said softly. And to courage. He touched his glass to hers. And to you. As the music began again, he reached for her hand. Dance with me, Isabella. She laughed. Here? In front of everyone? Why not? We've hidden long enough. He pulled her close and they began to move, slow and easy, to the rhythm of the night. The workers clapped, singing the same melody that had played the night they first met. You're still a terrible dancer, she teased. And you still make me forget every step, he said. The laughter around them rose, the vineyard glowing with joy and lantern light. When the song ended, Alessandro brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, Whatever comes, we've already won. She smiled through tears. Yes, because we chose the impossible and made it ours. He kissed her again, the world fading until there was nothing but the warmth of her lips and the heartbeat beneath his hand. The vineyard stretched out before them, endless and golden, a promise renewed with every breath of wind. The dawn began to rise beyond the hills, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Isabella rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. Tell me something, she whispered. What? When you first saw me, at that ball so long ago, what did you think? He smiled, eyes still closed. That I'd just met the rest of my life. She laughed softly, holding him tighter. Then you were right. The sun broke over the horizon, flooding the valley with light. The vineyard glimmered, the leaves trembling in the wind. The bell of the chapel rang once, clear and bright, echoing across the hills like a blessing. And there, between the vines and the morning sky, Alessandro and Isabella stood together, no longer count and merchant's daughter, but two hearts that had defied the world and won. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.